Greetings, citizens! I am Toronto's greatest supervillain, Dr. Holocaust, and you are listening to Channel Awesome's podcast, Nerd to the Third Power.
Hi everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I am your host and master of ceremonies for the time being, unless I cake it within the next few minutes, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, in this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing better than you in that I can talk, but I just got home from a convention about 2 hours ago, as of when we're recording this, so I'm totally exhausted.
Boy, so we've all got a...
Yeah.
It sounds like we've all got
We're in great shape, guys.
Skyblaze, how are you doing?
About as well as you guys. So, we are the ship of the broken.
Oh man, we've just all been blessed with Nurgle's rot, haven't we?
Pretty much.
I'm trying to avoid con plague.
Man, I have been just like mainlining orange juice for the last like 4 or 5 days. Just like, I need to get vitamin C into my blood any way as possible. Just like inject it directly into my veins.
I must be the only one who's not sick today.
Congratulations.
I was going to say who asked you, but that was actually you letting yourself into the conversation in a way that says, hey, guess who's on the show today? Producer Tom.
Sorry.
Yes, our own tech guy Tom is joining us for this week's discussion because it's actually a discussion that he proposed to us, and so we thought it only fair that he be allowed to participate.
He is also wearing a full hazmat suit.
As well he should.
Yeah, I got it from Dustin Hoffman from Outbreak.
You think he's got another one that he can sell me? Because I gotta go babysit my sister's kids next week, and let's just say if you've never babysat a 2-year-old, you don't know what death is.
This is an expensive movie prop, alright? So, you know, like, get your own.
Only time I've ever had a phone call start with, hey, I need you to come to my house and bring a tarp. This week we are discussing The Frame, a 2014 independent film that has frankly blown, it blew me away. I don't know about you guys, but I can't even begin to describe this film. It was just that genre-defying. But of course there is procedure to follow, so we will begin our show as always with Ask a Geek, and we've got a couple good questions here. So, first question here is to all the bronies in attendance. What do we think of the series premiere of Season 5? Skyblaze, why don't we start with you on this one?
I've been really impressed so far. Certainly the season premiere was really, really clever.
I was actually telling Skyblaze before we recorded the show, it was that I felt like it was a wholesale reference to a story by, I believe it was Kurt Vonnegut, called Harrison Bergeron, with the whole everybody being equal absolutely no matter what bit. But then Skyblaze actually came up with a couple 1984 references that I'd completely missed.
Oh yeah.
And we're both kind of confused as to whether or not this is still a children's show.
It is still a children's show, and again the most recent episode, which seemed to go a bit Inception, you know, the dream within a dream business. This is really sophisticated for something that's supposed to be aimed at 8-year-old girls. I can live with this, but there it is.
And it had Princess Luna in it, which more Luna is best Luna.
Yes, which automatically makes it better. Not that I'm in any way biased, you understand.
Kat, what about you? What have you thought of the season so far?
Oh, I have not actually watched any of it.
I'm pretty sure that's a stoning offense in 12 states and parts of Canada.
You know, I'm not even 100% sure that I finished the last season, which I know I'm a terrible person. I have just been really busy lately, and honestly, I ended up focusing my streaming stuff efforts on Daredevil. And honestly, I don't even have a way to watch My Little Pony right now.
That's fair.
So it's sort of like, I'm gonna go with the devil I don't know instead of the devil I do. The devil being My Little Pony and Daredevil.
Which I have heard phenomenal things about.
There's one hell of a contrast for you. I need to watch Daredevil.
Oh, it's so good.
And our second question here is actually one for Tech Guy Tom. And the question comes from Jeremy, and he says that he wants to get into audio editing, and he wants to know what kind of computer rig you would recommend for his work. So, Tom, this one's yours.
Well, it really depends on what kind of podcast you're looking to put together. If you're looking to do it like multi-track, kind of like we do, where we all record our audio separately and then it all gets sent to me and I edit it together file by file, you're probably going to want something a little bit beefier. On the other hand, if you're just editing a single Skype recording conversation, any machine will do. Doesn't matter how powerful. I used to edit podcasts on netbooks to give you an idea. So it all really depends on how you're doing it. But like if it's a less complex setup with like 1 or 2 audio tracks, you should be fine with pretty much anything off the shelf.
Okay. And our last question here comes from Ray, and she has a question for Skyblaze. She says, I've heard you mention your DJ business on the show a couple of times. What sort of gigs do you do?
Oh, I do any number of things. I've done like private parties, I've done big conventions, I've played the Excel Center, I've played tiny little rooms in pubs. I specialize in anime, video game, and chiptune music. You can find me on Facebook. It's called Projectionist. Or if you contact me via our Facebook page, and under to the third Facebook page, I can send you a link. Or you can go to my website, which is genesis.blazingskies.net, and find me there. Or I'm on Twitter as Proj, so Proj Genesis.
Alrighty. But anyway, that's all the Ask Geek questions that we have for this week. As always, you can send them to us through the email at billysmith@channelawesome.com and get those in because, we love hearing your questions. We love reading them on the air. So, yeah. And so with that, we're going to jump right into our news headlines. It's kind of a bit of a skinny show here, so it looks like Skyblaze, you got point this week.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Multiverse Headlines / Movie Bin. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend, or as I like to call it, Trailer Weekend 2015, and oh my goodness, did we have so many trailers come out this weekend. Batman vs. Superman, Star Wars, Fantastic Four. Heck, I was shocked that Age of Ultron didn't just throw another trailer in there to add to the pile, going, hey guys, we're still here. Yes, we know. We're going to see you when you come out. Trust us. And anyway, it's been kind of a slow week in terms of movie news and mostly comic book news thanks to those trailers coming out, but I do have something in store for you. This week, this is a bit of a spoiler story for the all-new X-Men number 40. Rounds are going about the headlines of a character coming out as gay. Yes, it's that time of year again where a character just seems to turn gay on us for some reason or another. This time, it's going to be Bobby Drake, Iceman, which left a lot of long-time readers with a lot of different questions because this sort of creates a bit of continuity issues. In any case, writer Brian Michael Bendis has promised us that this is just one small step to a much larger story going on. We'll have to see where things lead up from here. And that's all for the comic book news. Well, and comic book pages news. In comic book TV / Netflix news, we have Daredevil here being renewed for a second season on Netflix. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not sure how the season works with Netflix, but with the praise Daredevil has been getting, this is really no shock. Unfortunately, though, there is a slight change. We're going to get some new showrunners due to previous commitments by Stephen DeKnight. So Doug Petrie and Marco Rimes will be taking on the show jointly as it returns for its second season on Netflix. And still comic book TV news, and this is on TV, not Netflix TV. Adrian Perlek and Nick Blood lead the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. spin-off cast, otherwise known as Mockingbird for one of them. There's no time frame yet when this will be coming out. We're probably looking closer to next year, but it's interesting to see all these sort of spin-offs happening. Flash was a spin-off of Arrow, and we've seen some great success from that, so it looks like we might have even some more success with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spin-off. What it could be, who knows right now. Right now, just looking to pick up a cast and probably put together a pilot of some sort. Okay, enough of this. Let's actually hit some movie news. That's still comic books, technically. Valiant Entertainment is hit with a 5-picture deal with Sony right now. Probably pick up on the slack of lack of Spider-Man. But What's interesting is that Bloodshot, one of the major characters, looks like it's going to finally get itself a director, in the directors of John Wick, a sleeper hit in my knowledge of last year's action titles. A sleeper hit in my idea of an early action title that came out. Bloodshot will be directed hopefully by the John Wick filmmakers of David Lynch, Chad Levinsky. It's going to be based on a script by Jeff Waldo, with Matthew Vaughn and Jason Aaron coming on as executive producers. In the world that the comic book movies are sort of expanding upon, to have Valiant come in and go, hey, we're going to try this too, is good news for Valiant. Valiant superheroes are a bit unique compared to that of Marvel and DC, so you're actually a bit unique in the more blood and energy added into the superhero universe and comic book universes. In a more scaled down Pan, the prequel story of Peter Pan that's going to deal with Captain Hook and Peter Pan actually getting to Neverland is been pushed. Originally supposed to come out on July 24th of 2015, it's actually been pushed back to October of 2015. This might be a bit of a blessing in disguise for the movie. Already July and this year is looking pretty packed, so moving it out just a little bit into the fall gives it the time for the movie to breathe. If it already does look a little bit odd with Hugh Jackman, but hey, it's there. So look for Pan to come out October this year. Well, that's all the time I have for this movie/comic book news. As like I said, I don't have a lot. So please, in the comments below, tell us what you thought about the trailers that came out this weekend. Other than that, back to you guys.
Why, thank you. The editors of Gangan Joker magazine announced last week that mangaka Fujiwara Kokoa passed away March 31st. She was best known for her manga Inoboku SS, which ran in Gangan from 2009 to 2014 and inspired a 2012 anime series. Fujiwara's most recent manga, Katsute Maho Shoujo to Aka wa Tekitai Shiteta, remains unfinished, though the magazine is working on what to do with Fujiwara's unyet published materials. She was 31. Toei Animation Europe announced that the second season of Sailor Moon Crystal will premiere this summer. The season will pick up with the Black Moon arc, which will run for 13 episodes, concluding the 26-episode run Sailor Moon Crystal was originally licensed for. Given that the first 13 episodes ran for the better part of a year due to the 2 episodes a month release schedule, the series will likely conclude airing in 2016, giving the studio ample time to decide if they want to make more. Funimation announced last week that they've acquired the license for Ghost in the Shell Arise Alternative Architecture. The series, which has already begun simulcasting for Funimation members, is a reconstruction of the Ghost in the Shell Arise OVAs cut for TV-length episodes. It will also include 2 new broadcast-exclusive episodes that will tie together the events of Arise and the upcoming Ghost in the Shell new movie, which will release June 20th in Japan. Funimation also announced that their streaming service app is now available on the PS4. So if you have both a Funimation streaming service account and a PS4, you're in for a good time. The PS3 version of the app was also upgraded to match the PS4 app with improved features like better searching, queues, and account syncing. And finally, here's a bit of news that I find interesting. Just before the Otaku Summit 2015 in Japan, 30 event groups got together to form the International Otaku Expo Association. Their goal is to encourage new developments within the wider otaku culture by linking together otaku expos. So basically, they've gotten the biggest conventions and expos from around the world together for discussion and collaboration. They noted that even though these events are all celebrating Japan's otaku culture, they aren't really coordinating with one another. The organization hopes that by linking together otaku expos, each and every one a testament to otaku culture's achievements, with one another through the IOEA on a global scale, the fans, creators, organizations, and businesses that gather there would be able to widen the scope of their various activities. The events participating in the IOEA out of Japan are Comiket and Nico Nico Cho Kaigi. From North America, Anime Boston, Anime North, Otakon, Otakon Vegas, and SakuraCon. Out of Central and South America, Anime Friends, Expo TNT, J-Fest, and Lima Comics. Out of Europe, Akikan, Anikan, Ani Night, Asia Breeze, Dokomi, Phoenix, Japani Manga Night, Minami-Con, Nippon Nation, Romix, Salon de Manga de Barcelona, Salon Internacional de Comics de Barcelona, and Siberia Otaku Saiten. Out of the rest of Asia and Oceania, Anicom and Games Hong Kong, Comic Fiesta, Fancy Frontier, Overload NZ Comic and Manga Convention, Thailand Comic Con, and the Visual Arts Expo. What exactly will come about because of this mighty alliance is anyone's guess. And that's all I've got going on in the anime and manga world. Over to you, Dr. Gonzo.
Alright, our top story in the gaming news this week is Mortal Kombat X, or 10, or however the hell you want to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. The game was released to wild reviews, but the launch was not without some controversy. First among these was the surprising PC release. Gamers who purchased the game on Steam were subjected to a new experimental stream install delivery system. The game would preload 3 gigabytes of data, which encompassed the game executable, the main menu, and not much else, while the rest of the content would be downloaded in packs in the background. While in theory this meant players wouldn't have to wait for the nearly 40 gigabyte game to download before they could start playing, the practice turned out to be much different. The download packs weren't made available to the public for nearly 12 hours after the game was released, which meant for nearly half a day PC players had no characters, no battlefields, and no game modes that worked, and any attempt to start the game would lead the game to crash. This has led many PC players to jokingly call Mortal Kombat X a menu simulator. If this was a decision made by Warner Brothers or NetherRealm, it seems odd that Steam would be willing to try such an experiment on a major AAA release. Even more odd is the fact that no option for a full download was given at release, meaning that you were pretty much stuck with the preload. Gamers are impatient, true, but we're at least willing to let a game install on our machines first. The other controversy came from the announcement of Easy Fatalities DLC, as well as a DLC pack that would unlock all of the hidden content, which could also be bought using in-game currency, along with the Day 1 update that nerfed the amount of in-game currency that players would normally receive through play. I have to wonder whose decision these were, whether it was WB's or NetherRealm's, because these choices have seriously marred what is otherwise a stellar game. Alright, and we are back, and this week we are discussing The Frame, a 2014 independent film by Jamin Winan that frankly deconstructs, from what I saw, deconstructs the very concept of film storytelling. Very fascinating film. It almost felt like one of the old Twilight Zone episodes to me. And it was suggested to us by producer Tom, who seems to have an eye for these kind of independent films. So, Tom, since this is your baby, why don't you give us a brief rundown, if you can, of the plot of The Frame?
Okay, this film follows the two lives of Samantha and Alex. Alex is sort of a thief who's paying off a debt to a cartel who took him in as a child, and Samantha is a paramedic. And the film kind of starts out pretty straightforward. Like, it's about a guy who wants to escape his debt with this cartel. And then you kind of pull back and you realize his life is a TV show to Samantha. And we start following Samantha's life as a paramedic, and we start learning about her life. And then we pull back even further to realize that Samantha's life is a television show to Alex.
It gets very existential very quickly.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
It sort of enters the sort of philosophical territory, asking the question of, you know, how much of what we do and what we think is us, and how much of it is at the whim of, in this case, the writer, who we never really get to see, although we kind of get hints that this hobo-looking fellow is him, and how much of it is under control by whatever entity has decided to roll the dice and create this universe. So let's start with some general thoughts on the film. So, Kat, why don't we start with you on this one? What were your thoughts on this film?
Because I'm such an action film fan, something a little more existential like this sort of started a little slow for me. But then the further you get into it, the more and more intrigued you are. And by the end, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Somebody tell me. It feels like a few other films. Like, it's a little, I guess, Inception-y and a little Matrix-y. But it really, really great film. I really enjoyed it. I really didn't have any expectations going in, since, like, we went on this just with the recommendation from Tom, and I really didn't know what I would be watching. And so I just kind of went in with a blank slate and really, really enjoyed the film.
It called to mind of an old Twilight Zone story, where I think it was the Twilight Zone, or it might have been some other anthology series like Crypt Keeper or something. But a man basically realized that he was a character in the story, and this other man who was writing the story was actually dictating his life, and he couldn't. Then the man who was being written about couldn't break out of that. And it also sort of, in a weird way, it also reminded me of that Will Ferrell film Stranger Than Fiction, but definitely a lot more cerebral. But it it was very much a thinking person's film. It was definitely one that you kind of have to peel back the layers bit by bit as you go along, and as you try and figure out just what the hell is going on. And I really like that the film doesn't spell out for you what precisely is happening. It lets you draw your own conclusions as to the nature of the story.
For me, like from a film review kind of standpoint, like it explores and introduces the concepts of so many themes and asks so many questions. It's like a beautifully frustrating film for me. Like, I love it to bits for everything that it is, but it's so frustrating because it never really wraps anything up. The narrative is all over the place. It takes you from one place to another. It kind of suggests ideas and concepts about life, choice, and what reality even is. And it never really, it just kind of leaves you asking more questions, which is kind of good and I don't know, frustrating at the same time.
The thing that really hooked me at the start was actually the film's soundtrack. In the early part of the film, there's this very haunting, almost, Silent Hill type soundtrack, and I was like, well, okay, this seems like kind of a regular heist movie, but you don't bring out the long, slow Silent Hill type music unless you've got something kind of spooky going on here. So let's kind of see what's happening, and then you start seeing. I interpret it as sort of the walls between reality sort of crumbling when you see the ink washing over the buildings and over the vehicles and stuff. I was like, okay, there's something more here that's going on here, and I want to see where this goes. And the one thing I was kind of disappointed about was that it didn't seem to go both ways. Like, it's established early on in the film that Alex is a character in a TV show in Sam's world, and Sam is a character in a TV show in Alex's world. But we see any kind of interaction through that kind of go one way. We see kind of Alex's world affected by, the script and whatnot, but we don't see, of course, with the ending when Sam winds up saving Alex's life by altering the script, but we don't see anything really go the other way. So I guess I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get to kind of see the question of, like, is one of these worlds the real world, or are we just moving from one fictional universe to another? Does that kind of make sense?
I kind of felt the same way. There are hints that Sam's reality isn't real either. Like, very clearly, by the end of the film, you realize this. Alex has been pulled into Sam's world, and, like, where do they go from there? It just kind of ends.
Kat, what about you? What snatched you into the film?
I think the first time that they're both sitting in front of the television and they're just sort of like, what is going on? Because they're just watching each other on the couch. And then they start to talk to each other and then just immediately turn off the television and sort of freak out. I think it's the first part where I went, ooh, that's cool.
I tell you what, though, I wanted to see the shot of the guy who keeps selling Alex those TVs, because guys probably like, dude, you've bought like 6 televisions in 5 days. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, it does get a little bit repetitive where he keeps breaking the TVs, or the TVs keep getting broken, and he keeps showing up with new ones. It's sort of comical, just him walking in with a new TV, and his TVs kind of get progressively better because he's got these shitty tube TVs, and then eventually moves up to an LED.
I would say the moment that really, really hooked me was when I found out about Sam's kind of separate past, when her mother comes to visit her at work. It was such a small scene, but it said so much about her character. And Sam is just such a strong, angelic character almost, that's the moment that really kind of pulled me in, was that small exchange.
I wish that we'd seen more scenes like that, because I feel like Sam's character was kind of underdeveloped. There's all these hints dropped that she had some kind of dark past that she managed to get away from, and I feel like that it would have given her character a lot more depth. Certainly more than all the already considerable depth that she had.
I kind of like that they didn't go too much into her past. They sort of hinted that there is a past there, and she got away from it, and sort of like when her and Alex talk about it, they talk about his past, with definite information, and they talk about her past with sort of vagueness, and I kind of like it because they don't have to go into it, because they both know what happened, and they don't have to explain it for the audience because it really isn't necessary. And then I did want to say, one of the things that I really did like that sort of like tripped me when hey is when Sam is trying to meet Alex, and obviously we know he's not going to be able to be there because they're really in two different worlds. But then her psychiatrist or therapist or whatever shows up, and you don't see him right away, you just hear his voice, and you've been just hearing his voice this whole time. And that sort of goes, oh, that guy is not good. He is no good. There's something up with that guy.
Yeah, the psychiatrist was definitely one of the creepier characters in this whole play. And I kind of got the impression that he and you also see in Alex's world this sort of hobo character who rides this really gnarly looking scooter bike with a fucking like oil tank on top of it. Like, I've never seen, like, I look at this thing and I'm just like, how do you steer that? That doesn't work. But I kind of got the impression that those two characters were sort of two halves of the same entity, if you will. I didn't bother to check in the credits, but I can almost swear that they were played by the same actor. But no, the psychiatrist just by himself was like skeevy, like.
Well, he's sort of omnipotent. Like, you get the sense after quite a bit that he knows what's going on, and he knows that things aren't what they seem, and he's aware that Sam is becoming aware of it, and that's bad somehow, because and they never really fully explain what he is, because he's not a normal person. He's something else.
The moment that tipped me off that there wasn't something quite right with the psychiatrist was when he prescribed her the antipsychotics, and she goes to the drugstore to get the prescription filled, and this dark blank look comes over the pharmacist when he looks at the paper.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he just kind of drifts away. And then the follow-up session at the office where he asks, like, have you been taking your medication, not watching the television? When she says, yeah, I've been feeling much better. And there's just that long pause. You instantly know that he knows everything that's going on, or at least he knows something's up.
Yeah, because he keeps telling her, you have to take your medication. Like, he knows that she's lying, but he's, like, letting her get away with lying. So you know, like, something, like, okay, well, I'm glad she didn't take that fucking medication, because clearly that would have been bad.
Yeah.
So, I also like sort of the little touches that sort of foreshadow the final revelation of the film that, everything's basically a story. Because I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's all these little moments where if the camera is panning, the outer edge of the frame will, like, knock something over. Like, there's a couple scenes I can think of. One where it's in Alex's apartment and the camera's kind of panning to the right, and you see it knock the violin off of the desk. And you kind of see all these little moments that kind of hint as to what the final revelation will be. And then when you finally get to when they finally find the writer's desk, and Alex has to actually start fighting against the camera frame itself, I thought that was that's something I've never seen before, and I would love to know how they actually filmed those moments. I'd also like to know what the hell they coated that floor with in his apartment, that one scene where he's going back and forth with the frame and he's sliding around all over the floor. I'm like, dude, are you wearing rollerblades now or something? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I thought the effects of how they did the frame, which for our listeners who probably haven't seen the film and don't care about the spoilers, the big revelation is that they're basically living in a world dictated by a writer, and it's called the frame because basically the frame of your television or the movie itself, like your top and your bottom bar if you're watching widescreen kind of deal, are the world that they live in, and they're limited by the frame of the film, basically. So there's a lot of scenes of mostly poor Alex basically crashing into nothing, and it's basically him crashing into the edge of the screen and getting lifted up by it and being moved by it, and it's really, really well done.
The camera techniques, the cinematography in this film is stuff I've never seen before, and let me tell you, Hollywood could learn some lessons from this film, not just in terms of cinematography, but also in terms of pacing. like we mentioned, this is kind of a slow burning film. It doesn't do the normal Hollywood trend. It's like, okay, 5 minutes have passed, it's time to blow something up. Although it does open with a rather epic heist scene at the beginning, which I thought was really cool. But other than that, I mean, like I said, the movie paces itself and it takes its time to let you get to know this world and its characters instead of just like, okay, you're in the car now, we're gonna start this roller coaster.
One of the scenes that I really, really liked that I thought, like, this feels like it's straight out of a big budget Hollywood film, was the scene where they're basically on, I guess, what is their second heist, and they've got one of the trucks that they're trying to get away with, I think, and they're pulled over because they've got to get some drugs that have been stashed away at the bottom of the truck, and some nice bystanders pull over to see if they're lost, and you're like, oh, you guys got to get out of there because there's all these trigger happy people who are all criminals who are really just trying to get through this under the radar, but they will kill you in order to do it, and you're just like, get out of there. And it's just this really, really tense scene of the unsuspecting normal people who are suddenly caught up in something very, very dangerous, and you're waiting to see, because this is the scene where Alex is about to die, because we've been told over and over something really bad's going to happen to Alex and he's going to die and they're going to kill him off. And you're waiting to see what Alex will do and how he's going to get out of it. And it's really, really intense.
And going off of Alex, I felt like his character arc, I kind of felt bad for him because his whole character arc through the first part of the film is, he's trying to find, I guess, redemption. He wants to get out of the criminal life and sort of, again, start over and get away from, all this darkness that he's been pulled into. And then the whole revelation with the frame happens. It's kind of like, okay, so he's not going to really find that redemption that he was looking for. He's just kind of now looking to get out of this prison that he's basically been built into, which I guess sort of ties into that. I don't know. It's kind of, I just watched the film earlier today, so I'm still kind of processing it. But what did you guys think of that, of Alex's whole character arc?
That's kind of the biggest point of the film, like the bubbling over point. You realize that everything that these characters have been through in their quote-unquote lives, it's irrelevant because they realize it's all been dictated. It's not real. After that kind of
Revelation.
Thank you. After that revelation, that kind of frees you up to start asking the bigger questions. It's like, what's really important for Alex is like, okay, everything that I've known to be true has been built up as this fabricated life and lie. So all that matters is escaping. And
so sort of the well, maybe not truth, but agency, the ability to make his own decisions and decide his own path.
And what's sad is that not only is his life this giant lie, but his misery is for someone else's entertainment. How fucked up would that be to find out? Like, I've had this horrible childhood and I've done all this illegal stuff and I hate my life, and other people are watching this for fun.
If you take that thought one step further, it's so interesting to bring that into reality and think about how we perceive other people's lives. And in such a time of social media, everybody's lives basically being on public display online, how desensitized we become to that, and what we treat as entertainment and what we treat as...
What's the line between entertainment and voyeurism, kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, these are two characters who've been watching each other on television, and even though to them it's always been just entertainment, they do have genuine admiration for each other because they've been able to see, oh, well, Alex had all this stuff happen, but look at him trying to, make his life better and trying to escape the past. And, oh, here's Sam, and she's had all this stuff happen to her, but she's still out there trying to save people one at a time. And they both genuinely admire each other, even though in their minds the other person has always been a fictional character.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great reflection of society about how we connect sometimes better with fictional characters than we do with other people.
So it's sort of two sides of the same coin here. There's you sort of ask the line of where's the line between entertainment and voyeurism, but also can sometimes this peek into other people's lives sort of lead to a genuine connection between people through that insight, I suppose.
We weren't wrong. This is a think piece. It's asking all of the questions it possibly can.
It really does.
And then leaving before it hears your answers.
Because I still haven't quite figured out what the hobo guy, like, this is the thing that's still getting me.
Oh,
because
the devil character.
Yeah, I think he says somewhere that he is also trapped. That he was trapped by the writer.
Right. He did mention that in the film. That is one of the bigger questions that, like, I'm kind of left with. There's not a lot of context to who this character is.
I think he's just sort of chaos. I think he is just destroying everything, and that's sort of like the affront to God. Is like, I'm tearing down this construction of yours because you've trapped me here in this, what we would call reality. So it's sort of like the devil is stuck in one of the worlds, and, you know, just as a backlash, he's tearing it down. And I think that has some sort of, I don't know if that's what's causing Sam and Alex to be able to, like, because they never explain really how Sam and Alex are able to communicate, but, like, the more they communicate, the more the world starts to fall apart.
That is interesting. That's a very good point I didn't even consider. Like, well, and yeah, maybe that was one of the devil's tricks, was to connect these two people to create more havoc.
Because that's kind of like, if I were, I don't know if I were writing it, I'd write it that way, but it just sort of seems like it's a possibility where the devil is just trapped in some, like, little tiny facet of reality and is just trying to tear it all down, and somehow the reaction of that, or the consequence of that, is that these two people have had a spark or something between them that allows them to communicate, because they're sort of doing their connection, the deeper their connection becomes, the closer they come to merging their realities, and they're doing it through music, which I thought was kind of interesting, a little random, but very interesting. And I kind of feel like this is chaos. This is the devil at work, because it's just chaos. He's just tearing down all construction and just leaving chaos in its wake.
And one thing I was disappointed about was we never really got a good look at that tower that was growing in the background in the city. Throughout the whole movie, you see this sort of black tower made of, like, ink veins growing up out of the ground, and you never really kind of get an explanation as to what it is or what exactly it's doing. I mean, it's clear that it's doing something to reality, but we never get, like, a clear understanding of just what it is. I mean, we never even get close to it. Except for maybe, like, once where Alex is, like, a couple of blocks away from it when it's just forming. And it's clear that he notices it, he sees it, and he's just kind of like, you know, what the fuck is that? But we never get any kind of insight into what it is or how it's connected to events.
And how about the fact that the truck they hijack is full of ink as well?
You know, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, the truck that they've got is full of ink, and yeah,
It totally is. I thought it was like some sort of like chemical, like a fuel or a chemical or something. But yeah, it's totally ink now that you say it. Oh my god, that's so brilliant. And then I kind of feel like the whole thing sort of feels a little Matrixy to me, with the idea that, like, constructed worlds and your mind is in one place, and then it sort of feels like the therapist, who may or may not be the same person as the devil, or maybe is like looks like the devil but isn't, is sort of like maybe like one of the agents, like Agent Smith or somebody, who's trying to make you or keep you passive and keep you in that reality and not realizing that it's not real.
There's definitely some credence to that, because when the psychiatrist confronts right as she's exiting the studio with the script, what does he say to her? He says, "It's about your mother. Like, we've been looking for you all morning. Like, she's dying, Sam." He's trying to keep her focused on the world that is around her.
And then so now I'm thinking again to the therapist and how he looks like, and I think is played by the same guy who plays the sort of devil character, and maybe like it's sort of like, okay, if we're gonna go for the writer is God metaphor, then it's sort of like the devil is a fallen angel. So, like, if you have these people who are built into reality, we'll say, for example, if we're going with the God metaphor, these are angels who are there to keep you grounded in that reality, and the devil looks like them, but isn't like them because he wants something different. I might be reading too much into this, but I'm kind of like looking at it like that now.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's a thinking person's film, so it's definitely one it's definitely a movie that leaves itself open to interpretation, and I think that's one of the reasons why we found it so fascinating. It's one of those films where nothing's really outright spelled out for us. We can kind of just go nuts with it and interpret it, and I really think that the filmmaker here has got a piece of dynamite on his hands. I really think that he did a bang-up job of producing and writing this film, and I'd be fascinated to see more from him in the future.
This actually isn't his first film. He's done a handful of shorts prior to this. His other big feature right before this one was called Ink. It's more of a sci-fi fantasy piece than anything else. Asks a lot of interesting questions, but nothing as deep or as in-depth as The Frame does. Definitely check it out if you get an opportunity.
Honestly, something like this, which is a genuine think piece that's sort of done differently, is really refreshing compared to, say, something like Inception, which is so confusing and so heavy, and like by the end you're like, I don't even care, I just don't. But also like it has a wonderful way of building suspense without bashing you over the head with it. It's very, very much a think piece, but it's not really dark or really heavy, and it doesn't need flashy explosions or character deaths in order to make it a good, intriguing film.
Alrighty. Well, I think that pretty much, there's nothing really I can say to add to that, so I guess that just pretty much wraps up our final thoughts on The Frame. So, yeah.
Tom should tell people
yes,
where they can
Tom,
find more information.
Where can we
about
find this film?
Easiest place is just to go to iTunes. If you have iTunes store on your computer, just go and type in The Frame. It's available there. It's also available on Amazon, and it's available on DVD from the website doubleedgefilms.com.
All right, yeah, so that's The Frame, and so yeah, that pretty much wraps up our discussion for this week. Next week we discuss Daredevil, the Netflix original series that has been making the rounds and has been getting phenomenal reviews, which I'm looking forward to that. And then after that, our summer movie season begins with The Avengers: Age of Ultron, so definitely looking forward to that. So we will see you next week, assuming I haven't died from this cold by then. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
And I'm Tom the engineer.
We'll see you next week. Thank you as always for tuning in. Taka, play us out.